Good afternoon. My name is Joshua Anton, and today I'm going to be teaching you guys about mobile prototyping. So before we even do anything, I'd like to get your names and kind of one thing why you're here, real quick.
Okay, I'm Evelyn, and I'm just here because my group is possibly thinking about making an app after we figure out how to connect multiple devices.
Okay, awesome.
I'm Abu. I am actually planning to develop some apps on smartwatches and smartphones, so I think it will be helpful for me.
Okay.
I'm Bart, and I make apps.
I'm Amy. I like UI and apps.
I'm BJ, and there's a potential application for my group project as well.
Okay.
I'm with their group, so I'm Luke.
Okay.
And
So
also, I'm personally interested in how to do my apps.
awesome. So you guys, how many of you guys are in one group? Okay. And then you guys are in separate groups, correct? Okay. And again, could you tell me a little bit about your projects real quick so I can kind of get a perspective?
So we're having, we have an insulin pump, and we would want to connect it to something that somebody would be able to wear, like a handheld, like a bracelet or something that would read in ketone concentrations, and then we'd be able to use the concentration to decide how much insulin we would need. And then we want to use an app possibly just to give readings to the person if they want to check their phone or something to see if their ketone levels are what they're supposed to be.
Okay. So basically communicate that information from the wearable to the phone. Okay.
So we are thinking like detecting hand wash of the physicians in the hospitals, warning them if they don't forget to wash their hands. So that is our goal, using smartwatch sensors.
It's kind of an alert system basically.
Yeah, so when they go for a patient or an ICU kinds of things, the smartwatch will detect that he is entering some critical area. So it will give some vibration or like some sound that wash your hand before you enter the area. That is our.
Okay. Awesome. That's really cool. And then for you too?
We're thinking about working with some people that are building a forum, like for that will assist in creating new technical devices. So just like getting feedback from patients, students, and I guess doctors on like devices that they need. Is that right?
So medical forum?
Yeah, some type of medical forum.
Okay.
I'm thinking of another app just on my own. Maybe I'll bring it like for to get some people to work on it. So in China, hospitals are overcrowded. People often come like to so okay, just make it simple. So it takes people 8 or even 10 hours to be able to talk to a doctor because they have to get into the line, get a number, and then wait again to like talk to a doctor. So the process takes forever, and sometimes people don't even get to speak to doctors because there are so many people. So I was thinking to have a app that can that people can get numbers on the app without getting to line in the hospital, like actually. And then they don't have to wait in front of the office either. The app will send notifications to them whenever their number's called, so that they don't have to waste all their time like the entire day.
So you basically try to reduce wait time in hospitals. Okay. And then for you two, are you guys in any of the groups of these folks or?
No, we're in our own group of other people.
Okay, so what I wanted to ask both of you, if you could explain, first off, your name, and then what project you're working on, and then something about yourself.
Okay, I'm Alex. We're in the group that is trying to like measure like physiological indicators in the foot for like I guess like foot ulcers or something for patients with diabetes because their like nerves kind of like break down there and they may be able to tell. What else should I say?
No, that was good. And then for your name and kind of, because you're in the same group. What's your name?
I'm Wendy.
Wendy. Okay. Alright. And then one question, are you in the same group as any of these folks, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. What's your name, by the way?
Katie.
Katie. Okay. And the last part I'm going to ask all of you, so how many of you come from an engineering, computer science background? Please raise your hand and get a good feel of the room. All right, so about half and half. How many of you guys know how to code Objective-C for iOS and Java for Android? So Java for Android. Okay, and Objective-C for iOS? Okay. So for all the Android folks in this room, I am going to be teaching this from an iOS perspective, which is something I know a little bit better. It's where I started. Thank you. And so, yeah. So a little bit about myself. First off the agenda, so I'm going to give you guys the background, kind of a little bit about myself and what I'm going to talk about today. Why prototyping is important. The 3 P's of prototyping. Prototyping tips and tricks. Basically a few cool resources, which I spelled wrong, that you guys can use, and then finally kind of a closing statement. Now, I'm not necessarily from a technical background. I actually, in fact, visited Roller Tree Apps 2 years ago when I was first starting, kind of trying to learn how to do mobile development. Yeah, actually, Professor Phelps took me on the trip over there. It was pretty awesome. We talked to a guy named Thomas Chen, who pretty much kind of gave us what language to use and answered like 30 questions I had in that sheet. So I'm coming from a very business development type background when I'm explaining this. For me, I had to figure out how to not only communicate to a mobile developer, how to put my ideas on paper and wireframe something, and then I had to basically be able to manage that process with the other technology folks on a business development side. So I learned how to do this kind of the opposite way of coding. For me, I was a third-year McIntyre student when I started, and I graduated and decided to work on my app Drunk Mode. I also went to University of Virginia and transferred in from community college over here. So first off, I'm just going to say my first prototypes were not pretty. This is kind of what I wanted to build when I first started, a music alarm clock. Technically in October, Apple created an MP3 that basically you can associate your alarm clocks to MP3, which put that whole idea out. I had no idea what I was necessarily doing. I pretty much kind of copied and pasted different things on Vizio and kind of made that happen. When in October 2012, I got a little bit smarter, and I started basically studying all the different components for iPhone. So everything from the accelerometer to how music and videos are communicated to what I wanted to give an example, when we were trying to figure out how to build what was Drunk Mode at the time, ability to stop you from drunk dialing, we were trying to store this in the P-list, which was something I had to figure out and communicate and realize P-lists were not the big things that we were supposed to work on. We were supposed to use the core frameworks of the iPhone. So a lot of my process when I first started was I had no idea where to start, frankly. I had no idea how to code, I had no idea how the iPhone worked, and I spent about 3 months, about 20 hours a week pretty much studying every part of the iPhone and staying up to date on a technology standpoint. So how do NFC chips, how it work. The conceptual of how if you put how do you connect parts like a database and all that information for locations, and how do you bring that back into the phone and kind of display that to users. And it was a long drawn out process. I mean, frankly, I had no idea what I was doing, but what I did figure out was how to basically communicate what I wanted done into a more efficient manner. And I was very fortunate because I started with a person who didn't know how to do iOS development, but was also a CS major, who was the 17th developer I talked to coming from a political rally, who basically in 7 months we worked on creating our first app together by the end of my 3rd year. I got better, obviously. Started using real images. This is actually, if you take this away, this is kind of where we started. It was very direct. You click Drunk Mode and it turns on. And over time, we started to get a little bit better on how things looked. And I learned how to better look at design. I started using different frameworks, kind of like Snapchat, for example, and how they structure stuff. Because one of the rules I figured out was a joke actually last summer that whatever Snapchat does in terms of designing stuff, we should do as well. Because if they're actually doing very well, there's some things that we can learn from that company. And then obviously we got much better. Going to June, we still have some issues in terms of UX and making it look really sexy, but we started to really figure out kind of how to make things a little bit more simpler, how to walk people through the process. one of the things we realized is people got angry when they got drunk and deleted the app because they couldn't find their contacts. So we had to make sure that basically that popped up so that they knew before they turned it on that it would that they could that they don't delete the app when they're drunk. We started to put some personality on that, so kind of we had a random 50 text messages. One of the things so I took the entrepreneurship capstone my last semester here with Professor Richardson and Professor Martin, and everyone said basically, this app was too boring. It looked like Windows and no personality. So we made a very conscious effort to kind of put some more personality in it, and we took some text from last night and basically melded that into the notification system, so it was randomized each time. We also kind of, one of the things that I didn't realize, I thought from a technical point of view, you click on, that's all you need to do. But it turns out people really liked that they could put math questions in and turn it off. And that was more of the things that I figured out as I was talking to users. They were like, why can't we move shapes around? Or add a math question and actually turn it off. So this is something that's very small, really thinking about it. You would think that if you turn on drunk mode and you could just and it doesn't turn off after 3 hours, people would be happy. But people actually use the app for that experience. And the small little like emoticons there, to kind of again instill personality into the application. So we really started to kind of figure out how to learn this. This was actually a mock-up I sent for a feature called Breadcrumbs at the time, where I wanted to track where you went last night and kind of give you a report. So I took basically an application that kind of did something similar, and obviously it's a lot more beautiful, our version, than this one. And this is what I sent over to a technology team in Minnesota, who basically developed the first version of Breadcrumbs. And as you can see, I was able to say you'll be able to zoom in, you'll click an icon, you'll be able to see a timestamp of where you went and when you were there. And this was a mock-up I sent. Again, so I'm coming from a point of view that, I had no idea. When we were looking at this, and this actually is not June, this was like July or August, when we were coming up with a contact system to be able to add people to drunk mode. We, first off, and there's some things we're actually building into the next release. We're going to have a Facebook icon where you can just add all your Facebook friends as well. But we looked at what Snapchat did, and this looks very similar to Snapchat if you think about it, right? And we kind of analyzed, okay, so why do people like what Snapchat did? Well, they like that they can click this contact button and see all of their contacts in their contact list who are already on drunk mode. They like that they can search a username, and then this is your accepted friend requests. So again, we didn't try to reinvent the wheel, we got smarter over time. And the other things too, to invite selected friends, one of the mistakes we made is that we never had an alert view coming out afterwards saying that, hey, you just invited your drunk friends to turn on Find My Drunk. But the user would get a funny push notification like, don't go home Coyote. Don't let Joshua go home with someone Coyote ugly. Turn on Find My Drunk today. And it would randomize for those like 50 drunk text messages when they invited their friends. But this was a mistake that we made because when you clicked here, when you clicked, and I know it's touchscreen, when you clicked there, we didn't actually have an alert view that basically popped up saying you just invited your friends. So I know Steve Jobs would always say, like in his big, I don't know if you've watched any of the movies of his biography, that the small details matter. But that really does, because it's very easy to confuse a user when you build an application where they don't know where to go. And we've learned the hard way. We're still getting better at it and how to make a product that's really sexy to the user, that the user understands. Now the good part is that even though we made UX mistakes, being that we're a drunk app or a grow app and we have about 80,000 people using it, they've forgiven us over time with lots of bugs in UX. But if I were to do this over again, I would definitely start here and not there. Does that make sense to you guys? So time to go into the meat of this real quick. So what is mobile prototyping? Well, why is it important? The first part is that it gives you credibility. When I started, frankly, I couldn't go up to Willow Tree Apps, for example, and ask them to build my app for any type of equity. Why? Because I had no marketing experience. I was a third-year comm school student that just transferred to from Nova to UVA. I had nothing I could bring to the table to really be a valuable co-founder. So for me, I had to find a technical co-founder who was a crush of a girl. I had a friend of a girl I had a huge crush on community college on that I met on a bus, and together for 7 months, him not knowing how to do technical development and me not knowing how to sell an app, we both had to figure that out. And through that time, we both grew. He ended up being able to code and build the first drunk mode, the first iteration. And for me, I figured out how to sell the app and communicate that. And that was my biggest learning curve as a business development person. So now when I go up to developers, I can write those mock-ups, I can create a lot of those, the scope of what the project is, and I do get some help here and there, quite a bit from our developers, and them basically putting the jargon in, kind of putting the actual requirements so it's really understandable so we don't make any mistakes when we send it off to a developer. But I had to learn how to do that, and that built credibility for me as a business development person. The other thing too is that because I learned how to sell an application and how to do everything from social media to growth hacking things to one of our big strategies, talking to drunk folks, right? That credibility allows me to come to the table and say, well, can you build my app? I can help you market. I can bring to the table the marketing side. In terms of communication, being able to communicate with developers and having the patience and ability to understand what the trials, like my biggest thing is that I took project management my first semester. So it really allowed me the understanding of how to manage a technology project, differences between Scrum and kind of 2-week iterations where you're just basically developing a feature for that so you don't make a mistake. All of those things really help in communicating with developers because if you, and I'm sure engineers in this room can relate that some people will come up to you with impossible things and you're just like, why? This doesn't take 2 weeks to do, this takes like 8. Here's a much easier way to do that. And understanding at least how to put these things together and what engineers go through has been a life-changing experience because it allows me as a project manager on the business development side to understand where the developer's coming from in terms of what is impossible, what is possible, what is feasible, and to make very good decisions to make sure we hit a deadline on time. And then finally, causation. If you're going to go up to someone who, and I'm from a business development side or even from a technical development side, you need to be able to sell your idea. How can you sell an idea with nothing visually there and no plan of action? So knowing how to prototype your idea is very, very important because that allows you to sell the idea to the person to get that other team member, whether it be a business development person or whether it be on the tech side. Does that make sense? Awesome. And then the 3 Ps in mobile prototyping. So what I'm going to go over today is purpose, prioritization, and pizzazz, kind of the framework that I'm going to work with you on this. So it's kind of technical, but the purpose. What is the purpose of each view? I'm going to go for some examples. So when you see this, what do you think? Okay, clicking the red button, why?
Because it stands up.
Okay, and what does that red button do?
And makes you go to the chat list of like your friends and that shows you like notification of friends that chatting.
Okay, and anyone else? When you click the middle button, what do you think? Take pictures. It's not trick questions, by the way. So there's a reason for that. They obviously want you to engage more with the app, so they made their button red. So red, yellow, usually are the good colors to make those types of things. When you think red, you think
Emergency.
or
Something wrong.
notification.
Notification.
Yeah, both those things. So then you look at your Snapchat story, and you're like, okay, that's cool. And then you go back, and you may take a picture, because that's big and large, it's like, selfie, right there and then. And then for here, the purple, because they want you to click here for your friends, they also want you to see the stories. So that's why you're clicking over there. Not rocket science. When you see this, what do you think? Yeah, very simple, right? This is not rocket science. These are all very minimalistic designs that are very just. I want you to look at your notifications so you can engage more. I want you to take a picture, a selfie, so you look good on Snapchat. I want you to be able to search on Google or click "I'm feeling lucky," which I still find that funny to this day. I'm thinking of that song. And when you see Dropbox in this page, what do you think? What's the first thing that draws your eye?
Sign up.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Because they want people. Oh, you're easy.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, how are you?
Good one.
So yeah, sign up. So basically, nice visual image, but what they really want you to click is this button here. So before I continue, basically the whole point of purpose is what are your users coming there to do? The KISS method, keep it simple, stupid, right? You want them to come over there and you want them to do something very specific. Dropbox has this page because they want you to do one thing, sign up. we want you to do one thing, search. We want you to do one thing, look at your notifications, and then after that, take a picture. And for that to be simple. And we want you to go here first because you're going to engage with the application to increase that. So purpose is when you build your homepage, when you build each page, have the one thing you want them to do more than anything else and build that around it. The more, if you have 2 or 3 things, it gets more complicated. And that's a lesson I've learned the hard way, unfortunately, with our UX. So prioritization. So we basically literally do this. What information does a user need to accomplish this goal, right? What information is most important? And my advice to you is look at common apps and see how they prioritize what's on there. So again, what is the most important thing that they want you to do on Snapchat? And there could be 2 important things.
Take a picture and look at other pictures.
Correct. And then what is the most important action on the screen? It's to
Search. Hide that.
Yep. And then what's the most important action on this screen?
Sign up.
Okay. This is designed to be pretty simple. Now let's give you a different one. What's the most important action on this screen? How many people use Tinder in this room? Okay. Well, let me explain this then. I was building a Tinder bot yesterday, so this kind of for actually, it's not for Tinder, for relationships, but to get users or something. Basically, I was sitting there on a Friday night actually thinking, like, what am I doing with my life? But basically, for this, it's pretty simple. So how I use Tinder to really, and I'll go into the pizzazz part. You swipe like this, or you swipe this way. So literally like cards, you can swipe all the hot girls this way, and all the girls you may not want to talk to right now. I'm very careful with those words. This one. And so the heart basically is liking and the X is not. But the movement is like this. And if you click info, you'll be able to see the info about the girl, see if you want to swipe this way or this way. And so Tinder, there are other apps that did this, but Tinder, that's why it's so addictive. Because literally you can just swipe through all these different girls and who you want to talk to. And then when other people swipe through there, it's like hot or not. Their UX and what they did really, I mean, it pioneered a lot of other applications like Bang with Friends and there's a few others that I'm just gonna stop there. And then what's the most important action on this screen? The UX is not as clear, but I'm curious.
Spin down button.
Okay, and so that's downvoting. And then upvoting is upvoting. So when you look at this, is it pretty clear on what you want to do? If you don't, who here doesn't know Yik Yak? Who here knows Yik Yak? Okay.
It's anonymous Twitter, basically.
Based
Oh,
on
really?
location.
Okay.
Location
User
based.
account.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can get.
So like if you're in the Charlottesville area, you'll get a lot of UVA related or just anybody in the area.
It's like the hip version of college ABC.
Yeah.
Yik yak.
And it's been blowing up all across college campuses. So, yeah, so basically you're upvoting and downvoting different things, and then you're writing a post anonymously. So if you don't, their UX could be improved heavily, but at least it's pretty clear that you can, of what it does, if that makes sense. So, and of course, who here uses Spotify? Okay, wow. Are you guys all Pandora folks?
Yeah.
I don't like you guys. So Spotify, you got to get on that. They even have a college discount. I'm not getting paid to say this, by the way. But when you search for things on Spotify, so you can see my music preferences, I guess. So there's recommended music, or at least things I've searched for in the last 6 hours, I guess, when I took this screenshot. And for this, when you see this screen, what do you look at first?
Pictures.
Pictures. And what are the pictures recommending? Or give a better question. Why are they showing pictures first? Why are they prioritizing that?
Like, they want you to click on today's topics, whatever ready for the day is. I don't know if these things are on Spotify.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right though. And that's perfect. Yeah. Yeah, so they want you to listen to new music. They want you to discover this. If you look at Hulu or Amazon or Netflix, they all have a different way of prioritizing content. So you click this before anything else. So Spotify, and so for this is basically your past searches, so it's easier to search for things, making the user experience easier. And for this is making you click on certain things to discover more music. Again, increasing engagement in the application. And number 2, allowing you to discover different music, which benefits their artists. So, kind of in review, basically when you prioritize stuff, these are very simple prioritizations. For the most part, these are the two things I want you to do. I want you to click the notifications, and I want you to take a picture. And if you feel like it, maybe you'll actually see Snapchat stories. I want you to search. I want you to sign up. I want you to engage with this, and I want to make it as easy as possible to swipe this way or swipe this way. And this one is a little bit more crowded, but at the end of the day, you're downloading and uploading, and this is something that can be improved. I want to make it as easy for you to find the music that you already have searched for, and I want to make it easy for you to discover new music, increase engagement in the application. Does that make sense for prioritization? All right, and the final thing is pizzazz. So what gives your app personality? What makes it sexy? What makes it come to life? What makes it fun to interact with? We've kind of went over this. So for this, again, we discovered over time that basically putting math questions here actually gives it more personality and makes it more fun. For me as a guy, or not as a guy, just as a very simple person, I just like to click something and have it work. But for our users, they really like the math questions, and they even screenshot it on Twitter. That's how much they liked it, which was interesting. And here, every time we want you to like the Facebook page and you turn on drunk mode, we have a randomized message like the one with Fat Legs before, like us on Facebook if you remember your first beer, and kind of doing that. And so we go through a whole bunch of different messages to kind of give the app more personality, which is which was our big problem on our UX. Bringing sexy back with this app, again, very, very easy, just swiping to the right or swiping to the left, making it very simple and engaging for the user. For this is a Facebook paper. How many of you guys have used this? Okay. So Facebook paper is interesting. Their UX, if you've ever explored it, basically you're swiping like a paper like this, and it's actually pretty cool. But what they've done is that they visually guide you for the application for how it's set up. There's probably a much more technical way of explaining this, but basically, say you're building a news application, or if you look at The Verge, right? Their whole website is set up in a way to engage with you and walk you through that content. So like for example, as you're building your notification, who is the one who is building a notification app in here? Okay, so as you're building your notification app, it would be interesting how you could but how you can play around with how people are seeing those notifications to make it more engaging. Like for example, maybe those notifications are photos, right? And so when you swipe it, it just pops up. You know, makes it sexy, puts a little bit of pizzazz in there, if that makes sense. And so that's kind of the 3 Ps. Do you have any questions before I go forward? Is this understandable? Awesome. All right, so tips and tricks. First off, don't reinvent the wheel. I mean, pretty much most UX and UI designs can be found anywhere from Behance to downloading comparable apps in your space. Look at what they do. Look at what they do wrong and say, we're not going to do this. Look at what they do right and say, we're going to make this happen, and we're going to make it even more awesome than it was before. So most of my drunk apps in our space aren't really very sexy. But I can say like Facebook Paper or any of those types of things where we're supposed to do content, right? Those are much more engaging, right? So don't reinvent the wheel. Look for comparables. Look for other people that are doing similar things that you are doing and how that content or design is displayed, and mimic a lot of what they do well. Because also people are very familiar with designs. When you see the Snapchat design or you see the Instagram design, that is very similar if you think about it. You're taking a picture on Instagram, you're taking a picture on your camera, you're taking a picture on Snapchat. It's very similar place, and that helps users understand what they need to do in the application. Tips and tricks, the 100 rule. So I use this for testing ideas, I use this for testing design, I even use this to get marketing ideas. So the 100 rule is pretty simple. When you create your first design, go to the libraries, and you two know this pretty well. Talk to 100 folks and show them the app and ask them a very quick question. Look at what they do in the application. And then number 2, ask them, how could I make this easier for you to use? And let them just talk and just write down that information. And observe them. I'm not saying send a Google survey out. I'm actually saying observe what they do. Because if you look at that 100 times, they're going to follow similar patterns. And you want to, again, kind of reduce the friction that they have by using the application. You want to make it as easy as possible. One of the big challenges for us on drunk mode was we had to figure out how to get users to sign up within 3 minutes. So sign up, add a few friends, and basically use the app within 3 minutes. So one of the things that we looked at was people like Twitter, one of our comparable apps, right? They automatically, when you download the Twitter app, show you to follow folks. right? You already have your friends that you want to follow on Twitter based on your email and how that's connected. Well, for us, in our release, we're going to actually have your Facebook friends kind of show up and your phone numbers and your contact list already on drunk mode before you even click sign up. So this way you already have your few friends before you even go into the application, which doesn't apply to any social network in here, but that's I'm copying Twitter and Facebook and all of those applications. The reason why they all follow a similar standard. It works.
I would just add to that, when you ask people like what they want,
Yeah.
take it with a grain of salt, because a lot of times users don't know exactly what they want. They may say, oh yeah, I want this, and like, that may be totally not the right path to go, but definitely there's merit to observing their usage, see what their usage pattern is, put it in front of somebody and watch them use it. There's actually even libraries out there that you could pop into your apps to record a low quality video of their interaction with it, where they touch on the screen and all of that, in order to get a little bit of a sense of how your users are using it.
What is that called?
It's called Appsy. They're based out of Israel. But they've got like a free service. I think you can get like, you know, a handful of recordings from people actually using your app. And it doesn't have like a whole lot of effect on the bandwidth either. But it would just give you just a baseline of like, here's how people are using it.
And kind of add on to, so what's your name, by the way?
Michael, sorry, Michael, Willow Tree Apps.
So to kind of add on what Michael said, like when we first, so I can say that most of the features we developed for drunk mode, we did a lot of user testing before we actually did that. And so like for drunk dialing, when we actually had it as a $1 application, we had 10,000 people pay $1 for it. I just went up to about 100, 200 people in Clem's library in October of 2012 and said, hey, would you actually pay $1 for a drunk dialing app? Would you use this? And 80% of them said they would, and that they've never heard of another drunk dialing app. So that's how I verified that idea. And we actually had 10,000 people pay $1 for it before we made it free last February. And then for Find My Drunk, actually, Professor Martin and Professor Richardson, we had 40 classmates. I wanted to develop a hype map where I wanted to help you find your drunk friends. And 38 out of 40 people said we would use an application like that because it would actually allow it. We have always that one friend that gets lost when they're drunk. So, and then only 2 people voted for the hype map, which made me very discouraged because I really wanted to do that idea. But, you know, you had to build what the users wanted. And so I try to use above an 80% metric in this case to see if you're going to pay money to actually use that feature, then most likely you're probably going to use it if it's free. And so that's a lot of how I've done a lot of my testing from a marketing research point of view too. But there are a lot of ideas that have been presented to us, like there are a lot of them that they're just not feasible to do, and they would take away from the overall picture of what drunk mode does. Yeah, okay. So reduce friction. Again, like with Tinder, that's a good example. It's literally a swipe as an action. The faster you can get people to sign up to the application, the faster you can get them to use whatever the core functionality of it is, whether it's posting notifications, whether it's communicating with your wearable, the better you'll be. And that's where you're observing how people interact with your application is very important. Sexy user experience, again, look for cool things like adding personality to the application like we've done for drunk mode, or how people swipe on Tinder, or even how things are displayed on Pinterest. Figure out how to basically make your UI or your application look really good, where you basically have users saying, I really enjoy using this, or this looks really, really good. That automatic, instinct like this looks, great. And that is what you want to get your app to. And that's hard. Like it takes a lot of A/B testing and getting a lot of feedback to get it to that point. And then finally, ask for help. Again, whether you're a technology person or whether you're a business development person, I'll be happy to say I don't really know a crazy amount. I try a lot and I persevere, but at the end of the day, I have a very good team and a very good set of advisors on both technology and business development that I can ask questions to. So like when I'm writing, even though I have an idea how to write a scope to send over to a development firm, I'd rather talk to a developer or someone with technology experience and ask them to look over my work and say, is this what I really need to do? And on the business development side, you may not know how to market your idea. That's fine. Ask for help. Ask for someone, a professor, or someone from Willow Tree, in this case, where we went when we first started, to get that kind of that feedback and that experience, because they're going to direct you in the right way most of the time. We're all students, we're all mostly under 23, 24 maybe. So we're energetic, we're gung-ho, but at the end of the day, there are a lot of people that can make it very easy for you to find the information that you need to get there. So some resources, there are a lot more out there. I'm going to go through proto.io and kind of help you basically design a Snapchat app. Now most of you guys have a technology experience, so like not too worried about you guys not knowing how to prototype. I was thinking there was going to be a whole room of business development folks. I love Microsoft Visio, and when I couldn't get Microsoft Visio for free, I used PowerPoint. So yeah, PowerPoint is my best friend actually. But Microsoft Visio, if you can get a license for that, it is great. Also Behance, if you want to look for other people and what they're doing. There's a lot of great artwork on there. Flinto.com is another UX type prototyping software. I personally dealt with proto.io a lot more. Since, hold on, do I have this slide? All right, hold on. Try to click this. So this is my friend's application, but she was trying to figure out how to build an app and get a developer to do this, and she did a very good job. So it's not showing up great, but basically, it's really awkward to do this. You can see, like, basically she used Flinto. You can search for what you need to do. Sing a good old song, all of those things, check it off or uncheck it. And she communicated this to a developer in the engineering school, or one of her friends, and they jumped on board to help her actually get this app into action. And so this is a classic example of, she had a really good idea. She wanted to make the app happen. And while she didn't have any money to do that, you know, she had a friend at the engineering school that she talked to a lot of folks and kind of made that happen. And the app should be released in a few weeks. So it's not impossible, I guess what I'm trying to say, to build an app if you don't have the biz dev experience. And to sell an app if you have the tech dev experience. It's just getting the right team in place. So I'm going to go into building applications, but I do want to say one thing before. I'm going to close this presentation off, and then we're going to actually prototype. Does that sound cool? Alright. I do need to touch up on my PowerPoint skills. So closing thoughts. Again, like, your ideas are just ideas. This is a hackathon, right? To put your idea and make a plan. The goal is to make this happen, right? So I challenge you to next week, right? You're going to have your business plan together. You've already probably figured out what your problem is. You're going to figure out, I know, at 4 o'clock what your customer is. And you're going to figure out today, in the next 3 hours, what your product will look like. So the last part, there's just the most important, is that there are a lot of great ideas out there. The key is, how do you make that happen? How do you get the minimum viable product that you can show to someone and say, here's what so that's the next part. Prototyping is the actual, design of this. Getting an actual application. Getting a prototype of the wearable, maybe using 3D technology as an application to it. How can I basically take it to the next level? So either I can pitch for financing, or I can get a better team. Because I have proven now, not my idea, technically exists in reality. And for you guys, that is it's the easiest challenge and the biggest challenge. Because at the end of the day, you really, as long as you persevere and you keep kind of pushing at it, you're not going to necessarily fail. You're going to learn a lot and you may turn a different direction, but at the end of the day, you're going to make it happen. So I would challenge you in the next week, make a 8-week schedule of exactly your milestone schedule, what you're going to do from beginning to end to make this project a reality. So you can actually pitch this on January 1st or January 10th when you guys go back to school and actually start getting it out there. Does that sound like a deal? You guys committed? Yeah. Come on.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. All right, so we're going to go on to proto.io. Oh, yes.
So I was just curious, so just kind of like in the first few slides, you showed like your first example of what I think truck mode looked like, and then you talked about the updated UX, and I was just curious, like statistically, like how much of a difference did that make in the end for you guys, whether that be in terms of number of users, or was like kind of like what was the process of that? Was it like just, oh, right after we're after you put it out there, was it immediate feedback? Was it something you developed over time and you realized, oh, we need to, you know, kind of update our?
So we benefited heavily by being a drunk app. So a lot of our marketing hasn't been affected necessarily by UX. However, engagement, which is another, getting users is one thing. Getting people using the app over time is another. So by making the app simpler to add numbers, and like our updates aren't even 100% done yet. Like we're still finalizing them on the first. So what you saw on this end was technically what the app looks like now. So we got user feedback. So sharing breadcrumbs is going to lead to a lot of people are screenshotting breadcrumbs, like on their phone and putting it onto Twitter. So I realized that making it more easier to share will actually increase more users. People adding drunk friends on Find My Drunk, that actually increased once we got the contact book working better. So, and I believe that Facebook, adding your Facebook friends, which is user feedback across the board, that will make it even easier to add friends, that will also increase the amount of friends. So for us being a social platform and getting more friends onto, because for us, we want our marketing dollars to decrease over time, right? So we're spending 6 to 20 cents to acquire a user. My goal is to have, for every one user that signs up to Find My Drunk, that 3 more users sign up. So you have your 4 friends on there. And so to make it as easy as possible for people to sign up will increase our bottom line. And when we did release Find My Drunk, we did see an increase overall in the number of downloads. And on Friday and Saturdays, the margin between Friday and Saturday and Wednesday, Friday and Saturday being our biggest days, are much bigger. And it's not just from individual downloads, it's because people are most likely in social settings adding their friends all together on the application. So for us, that was a big part. In terms of this version, yeah, that definitely increased what the app did. So the math questions actually led to more screenshots of the application put on Twitter, which led to more users. And so that's what I would say, that it increased the shareability of the application. And for me, that's what I was most interested in, is shareability and more people using it.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. Any other questions? Okay. So how much time do I have left then on the clock?
So
Any
the
other
schedule.
question?
Technically it was 12:30 to 1:30, but we got pushed back, so.
Yeah, I mean, probably have more like 10 or 15 minutes. I saw some people leaving, but I
So
think it
you
should
have
be
2
fine.
options. I could have you basically design a Snapchat app, or I can help you look at your application that you're using now. Kind of, if we have some pieces of paper, kind of start mocking that up. I'm going to be a mentor for the remainder of the day and kind of start helping you guys get that together. Then that'd be a better use of our 15 minutes. Would you say? All right. So yeah, thank you again for having me, and hopefully this helped out with kind of clearing some of those small things up for design. Yeah.
How many people have an app going right now?
Alright, a few hands, alright,
Process.
process,
Yeah.
alright,
Cool. It's not anywhere.